in Lüneburg, Germany.
Thank you very much, Edward. Okay, that was the title of my presentation. I hope I can manage that. Yes. And it is about attachment. We heard a lot today and today in the morning and now about what is attachment, what is bonds. So let us give an example. For me, it shows everything. So I want to introduce you to Alex, and he's 10-year-old. He has a father and a mother. Well, the specialty is they both had relationships before. So the father brought into the relationship with the mother a brother and 2 sisters, and the mother 1 sister. One day, it happened a terrible thing. The father raped the stepsister, and he was condemned. So it was a really huge problem for the mother. She cut immediately their relationship with the father in order to protect the sister, but she said, oh, what about Alex? And she decided to protect the link to Alex. So 4 years later, the father went out and the relationship was normal because we could, even if he was in prison, take care of the relationship. So you ask at that time, Alex, he knows both parents are separated. Something terrible has happened to the family, but you ask him, okay, what is your family? And he said, well, that's my father and that's my mother. That's me. Well, he was angry. I asked him why. He didn't say, but well, he was angry. That's the grandmother and that's the sister. That's for him, his family, as nothing had happened. So that's the intentional severance of parental bonds. I guess it can be justified, as we heard, and also unjustified. It can be justified, so coming from the social services taken into custody, or from the other parent wanted to protect the child from a violent, mentally ill and stable parent. Taking into custody can come from own initiative of the social services or the child's initiative. And we move now to the unjustified severance of parental bonds. There are 2 ways I see in my practice, because I have a job that only exists in Germany as far as I know. It means I am a tutor of the visits. I protect the family court decision. So I stay with the family sometimes 1 year, sometimes 2 years, or even longer. So I really see how is reality in this family. So that's according to my experience. If it's unjustified, and mostly with small children, the normal way is contact prevention, or you manipulate the child's will. We don't really know much, at least in Germany, what are the motives, consequences of all that, because there's not much research. We have to change that. That's the whole picture. We are talking now in my presentation only about this unjustified severance of parental bonds. But the consequences affect also when it is justified. It means has to be in proportion. The taking into custody has to be in proportion to the damage caused to the child. Well, that's theory, and we all like theory, but what about the practical thing? We have justified and unjustified, and well, we have a professional that hears the following as follows. I don't want to see my dad anymore. Sorry, my dad anymore. So it is justified or unjustified. How do we know? Is it important to make the difference? Oh yeah. In the first case, it means you protect or respect the will of the child. In the second case, you let yourself manipulate 2 times. You manipulate the will of the child in order to manipulate the court decision. So it's a double instrumentalization. If it is unjustified, how about the motives? We heard some motives. They are very similar to those I could add to them. And at least at the beginning, because I have the impression there's a dynamic into the process, maybe parental alienation is the result, but it was not the purpose at the beginning. So at the beginning, I've seen, it's not very much known about that. So owing to my professional experience, I've seen some, motives like, now I have a new mother, new father, so I don't need the other one. A question of money, so paying alimony, to pay 2,000 euros a month or not paying them makes a difference for many people. It's that tradition, what you lived, experience in your own family is a question of power control. I control the children, so I control the other one. It's retaliation, vindictiveness. We heard that today. It's a blackmail. Either you do that, or I take your children away, or you hit first, there's a separation and you mistrust your partner, so you hit first. In order not to be alienated, you alienate first. But what are the consequences? Well, for the child, I made a study. For the family, we heard a lot today, grandparents, fathers. And what is our society? We're talking about thousands of children being alienated every year. It means adding the families around. So it's a real social problem. And we don't know exactly what are the dimensions of that problem. And we move, that was just a before introduction. The real introduction is that one. So we have a family support system. I understand judges, lawyers, experts, guardians of items, tutor, access guardians. So that's the profession I told you about, social services, etc. So these are the system we were talking about in the last presentation. What is the problem? Do the system now? What are the consequences of their decisions? No. They have no clue. Did they decide right or not? No possibility to know. So the system has no opportunity to improve. Professionals decide blindly. So I decide, I think that's like this. But why? I don't know. I always decide like that. Or my friend or my colleagues always do like this. They ask me to do that. Science cannot give an opinion if there are no results, no evaluation, no possibility to say it was right or wrong. And without evaluation, the family support system cannot assume responsibility. So you cannot say something was wrong, so you are guilty, because nothing was wrong or right. But what are we talking about? Well, that's a Rolex, or that's a Casio. They are your watch, and you have to repair them. Would you entrust your watch to be repaired to somebody who does not take responsibility? No. Would you entrust your watch to be repaired to somebody who does not guarantee to repair it in the short or long term at all? No. And if you had no choice but to have your watch repaired in another service center, what would you do? I don't know. I only know that system. So we are treating our watches or cars better than our children. This is why it's necessary to think further about consequences and causes. Well, I say my psychological study is pioneering in this form because I am very unmodest or ignorant. So please, I beg you to correct me if I say something stupid, not that to say that today for the last time. But I would say that's the first time there's such a study in Germany, and maybe also in Europe. I don't know anywhere else. And I wanted to now make kind of indirect evaluation of the family support system. What happened to the children when they became adults? Or else, what were the consequences of our decisions? I feel myself as a part of as a father, but also a part of the system. So what happened? Was it right or wrong? This was the study. Only 3 conditions for participation. Adults, no domestic intrafamily violence. But how do you know that? Well, I say the only possibility is there was no criminal conviction. Maybe that's too large, too big, I don't know, but that's the only possibility. And in order to avoid cultural interferences, it was a German, it has to be a German-speaking culture. So thus it's more similar what the results we get. And I wanted to compare 3 groups of adults depending on how were their family conditions they grew up in. First one, they grew up in intact families. Second, those adults whose parents separated, divorced during childhood. And third, who have suffered an intentional and unjustified severance of their parental bonds. Hypothesis. First one, life satisfaction and health, both physical and mental, of the third group, let's say alienated children, is worse than the other both groups. And second one, life satisfaction and health of B is worse than A. The objectives, as I told you, provide a feedback to better understand the phenomenon of the intentional and unjustified severance of the parental bonds. We may say parental alienation, but I wanted to specify what is for me parental alienation and give visibility to the phenomenon and the victims of parental alienation. Well, I am speaking about Germany, and in Germany, you cannot talk about parental alienation. So let's say a taboo word and also taboo research, because nobody is doing that. That's a good thing for me. I can do whatever I want. It's everything a virgin field, so I could do that. Well, later I can say some anecdotes about that, but not now. So the quantitative part is both like the study of my colleague. I made a total of 200 variables per participant, you can imagine, and 55 transcribed interviews. Results, not surprisingly, that's life satisfaction of group A, B, and C. And what about the health? You see mental health in blue and physical health in red, let's say red. The highest, of course, group A. And you see the mental health declines dramatically between the groups, but not the physical health between A and B, but yes, between A and C. And you can say that's physical health. And parental alienation, let's say it's something emotional. So we are talking about a psychosomatic approach. So this emotional problems leads to physical problems. Well, that's more or less the same story. So treatment, no treatment in 6 cases, group A, 13, or IC diagnosis in 399 in the next group. And I want to see how were the circumstances. I searched 200 variables. So there's so many information I get from every participant. I can combine it in order to get really much precise results. That's just a summary. So how was the conflict protection? They lived, look, the difference between A and B. Imagine 1 is the minimum. It's from the scale from 1 to 7. 7 the maximum and 1 the minimum. So no conflict protection here. Family current contact with, let's say, I don't know, family members, something like that. Family bonds, how was existing or not. Affection experience or emotional support experience. And now the exposition to parental conflict. So these are the conflict variables, as I said. So yeah, there were conflict situations in the parental home, group A, but look, the difference between A, B, and C, but decisively is the difference between the involvement of children in the parental conflict of group A, so almost 0, and group C. And we have to add another point, which is not here, the cut of the binding, the bond. Another result that was exactly the same as my colleague. So the quantitative part of the family support system says they have statistically no relevance for the health and the life satisfaction of the adults. So it is neutral if they were there or not. It's good news, it's not bad. Bad news, it's not good. But not more than that. But the same thing, if you ask the people, I said a qualitative part, there were two raters, so inter-rater reliability, two raters, and they both looked at the interviews. There was only a rather positive mention, and the rest were negative, so 80% negative or very negative mentions. For the second rater, there was not one positive mention, but they are all negative or average, in negative in 93.5 of the mentions. So from the objective way, there's no effect at all. From the perception, it was very negative, and not only concerning men, like my colleague, but also concerning women. There were more women than men making part of that study. Another point, I don't know how many of you were here in the morning, but we talked about breaking the circle. So there's an intergenerational effect, even in the third group, alienated children, which is relevant statistically, or very relevant concerning psychical health. It means what you lived your health and life satisfaction actually at present has to do with the life satisfaction and health of your parents living in their whole in their houses, so in their whole house. Well, the rest is just confirmation of everything, but now concerning the qualitative part of the study. So you see depression percent 0.099, alcohol or substance abuse 0.35, negative self-image, social reaction 0.69, drop in performance 0.512, and criminality 0.06. So it makes a difference if you were born or grew up in group A, B, or C. The rest is more or less not surprise, a repetition. Who did all that? Both fathers and mothers. What happened when some of them reported they have been alienated in their adulthood, but both as fathers and as mothers. And the consequences, I couldn't find a recognizable pattern, a syndrome. So a syndrome is let's say, a pattern you can recognize. For example, for depression, you say sadness or black future or low self efficiency, whatever, and you say all the symptoms, and in the end you say, yeah, the person is depressed. But I could not see a pattern by concerning the children or the adult having been alienated as children. So I couldn't say there's a parental alienation syndrome, but I don't care at all because the symptoms were terrible as well. Some words. Can the child decide? Well, I think it's the other way around. Are children able to decide that they don't want to have contact anymore? Because somehow I think it's the most natural thing in the world for a child to want to have contact with both parents. Or another one, concerning the consequences, and confirming completely what my colleague said before. And within a year, I found out that my father was living on social assistance. So he was alienated as a child. And after 20, 30 years, he looked for the father, and there was a possibility to find him, and he found him. And he found him living on social assistance. My father was a commercial clerk and earned very well at that time. I know this because my father became mentally ill after separation without contact with the two children. Results, hypothesis 1 was confirmed, and 2 partially confirmed, and the implications. So the intentional unjustified severance of parental bonds is a problem that affects the whole society, repetition, and it's expensive. If we're talking about costs, imagine thousands of persons, resources to be spent in order to repair all that costs, or lost resources. These children get lost for the system. if we are talking producingly, well, we don't have to, I don't like it, but sometimes it's good to mention. And not only, yeah, it affects children, but also the parents and the family around them, as we saw today. And the difference between A and B show that a conflictual conflictual separation of parents cause also similar systems. So similar consequences, or have similar consequences. Well, to mention here that there's parental alienation, well, I'm playing home to say that here, but we can say that outside because it's truth, it exists and conditions negatively the adult life of its victims. Attention, well, obvious things, respect, affection, family bonds, protect our children, or else over-dimension of parental conflicts, mainly if children are involved, hurt them, harm them, and can destroy them. It seems that the family support system is not achieving its goals. Why not? Lack of empathy, of training, the consequences of their decisions are unknown. And well, what they reported was there's no constructive conflict management. They are judgmental rather than supportive. It seems that there is an intergenerational effect to be taken into account. And it seems that if the system is not able to achieve its objectives, but why? Well, I made a new study to find out this discrepancy between the quantitative and the qualitative results and the structural problem. So I said, well, systems are made by human beings, and human beings we want all to love and be loved, to be positive. When we were children, we wanted to be Peter Pan and not Captain Hook, or Pippi Langstrumpf or not the policeman. And as a children, we all wanted to do good things. So why do we have such stupid thing as parental alienation, harming thing? One part of the explanation, as a jurist, I would say, well, family law is part of the private law. So we have a court and a problem. Contract has to be solved according to the law system, and the court has to decide if A or B is right. And family law is part of private law. So there's the same scheme. But something changed. Family law must prioritize the best interest of the child. Does it change anything? Well, everything. But now imagine the goal is not to produce a decision according to the law, but to produce the best possible decision for this child, to protect this child in this situation. It changed completely everything, the structure, the perspective. Now we take the perspective of the well-being of the child, the habits from thousands, well, thousands, no, hundreds of years. In the Roman law, we have the same basis, and the very idea of justice. So what is now justice concerning the well-being of children? It's not the right word for that. So it doesn't work anymore like this. Cannot work like this, because the judicial system was inherited for a long legal tradition, adversarial. The dichotomy, one wins, the other loses. We know that. And that's if we are sincere, but I write the post-truth. So how many lies you hear at court in order to cheat the court, to get your own goals? Or delegation. So once you go to court, I give you an anecdote. I ask an appeal family judge at the appeal court of Hamburg. Okay, would you entrust your own family problems to the system you represent? And the judge said, are you stupid or what? Never. So they know that. And I say, why not? And she said, I lost the autonomy. I will not decide myself about my own family. And I don't know who is going to decide. So they would prefer not to do that, but that's what they do the whole time, every day with other families, what they don't want for their own family. And that's, I swear, that's not the first time I've heard. it's a system that must translate family conflicts into legal terms. What do I mean by that? The real problem of a family is not custody, is not how to share the children. The real problem is emotional, is fear, is, well, I don't know, lack of confidence. It's, I'm being hurt. So it's an emotional one. And you cannot address this problem at a court. So that's from the beginning, it cannot work. More, no training of professionals adapted to these objectives, no culture of collaboration, not very protective way of including children in the procedure. And I added that one because I am a contact facilitator, a tutor of the visits. So how many times I am appointed as contact facilitator and I see a completely different reality at that one I was appointed for, because my colleagues couldn't see the reality in a very short time. After 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, I see a family as it is, but not before. So could the court's decision be the solution? The difference between solution and decision, could be the court decision be the solution of the conflict? Rhetorical question. New paradigms, we need new paradigms. I love that sentence. I don't know if you know that. Don't forget that justice is what love looks like in public, just like tenderness is what love feels like in private. Maybe too much romantic for our jurists, but I think that's right. Or to reach the temple of justice, pass through the temple of concord. I hope that by passing through it, you will compromise. Conclusions. To safeguard our children, we really need desperately a restructuring of the family support system, new paradigms, completely new paradigms. We have to protect our children from exacerbated parental conflict. So any way even if we don't want, we don't pretend to do that, we exacerbate the conflict at a family court for the reasons I mentioned before. We have to protect parental bonds, recognize the intentional and justified surveillance of parental bonds phenomena. We have to prevent it and know how to react against it. And we have to promote effective resolution of conflicts so that a solution and a decision be the same thing. Before the family court, the expansion of collaborative models like parental consensus, COGEM, whatever, multiplication of constructive initiatives, les avocats de la paix, so the lawyers for peace. You may say lawyers for peace is some kind of oxymoron, but it should not be. It should be exactly, could be. Oxymoron, you understand? It's like dry water or black snow, something like that. Shouldn't be, but I know some colleagues understand that really like this. Development of amicable settlement chambers, as they have in Belgium, for example. Outside the family court, well, it's really about changing mentality to develop voluntary mediation, really subventionate. You subventionate the war if you don't have money, but never mediation. This should be changed. Thank you very much.